The end of episode 1 delivered the show's first big twist. The doll is gone, and in its place is a living, breathing baby. My biggest question heading into the second episode was if the baby was somehow Jericho, brought back to life, or if the baby is a stranger. Luckily, this is answered right away in a scene where Sean confronts Leanne and asks who the baby is and where it came from. Leanne, of course, insists that it's Jericho, which is probably the reaction we should have expected. What's nearly as bizarre is Dorothy's reaction to the baby. She doesn't notice any difference at all between the doll from before and this new child. Of course, this is disturbing to Sean, as it's now even more clear just how deranged his wife has become. This episode is titled Wood, and we soon figure out why. If you recall from the previous episode, Sean pricks his finger on a crucifix in Leanne's drawer and gets a splinter from it. In this episode, he spots the same crucifix hanging above the crib, and he gets angry. He takes the crucifix to the kitchen, breaks it to pieces, and destroys it in the garbage disposal. Soon after, he gets more splinters from the hardwood floor, and later, during the dinner scene, he appears to have something stuck in his throat, and eventually hacks up a large piece of wood. While we don't yet know the full significance of the crucifix, it's clearly got some sort of power, and meddling with it has consequences. We eventually see Leanne crafting a new crucifix, and spot it once again hanging over the crib. The crucifix isn't the only instance of a strange force gaining control over Sean. One night he tries to take the baby out of the house, and punches in the security code to the door 3 times, which strangely doesn't work. The ensuing alarm wakes the whole house. We see Dorothy easily disarm the alarm with the same code that hadn't worked only moments earlier. In episode 1, we were introduced to Julian, but here he plays a much larger role. He sees the new baby for himself, confirming to us that it's in fact real, and that Sean isn't crazy. I actually felt a wave of relief when Julian saw the baby was real. The men conspire in private multiple times, trying to unravel the mystery of where this baby came from. Julian pursues an idea of checking reports of missing babies in the area, but this ultimately leads to nowhere. Throughout this episode, we see Dorothy go into trance-like states. In these states, she stares ahead, seemingly unfazed, even when people speak directly to her. There's a scene I liked where Sean and Julian catch her in one of these states, and Sean sees it as the possibility of her snapping back to reality. He seizes the opportunity and asks her if she remembers what happened to Jericho. There's a brief moment where it feels like she might actually answer, but she soon snaps out of it. There are a couple other scenes where Dorothy seems to be realizing that something is off. Lauren Ambrose does a wonderful job of acting with just facial expressions. One of my favorite scenes is the finale, when she's alone and holding Jericho. She looks him over and smells his hair. There's a look on her face that hints that maybe somewhere deep down, she's slowly coming back to reality. Lastly, let's talk about Leanne. We don't know a lot about her yet, but are led to believe that she's a very devout religious woman. In this episode, her morals begin to get tested. During the birthday dinner for Julian, she reluctantly accepts champagne and looks uncomfortable drinking it. It's easy to imagine why she'd feel obligated to drink during a moment of peer pressure. But then we see her alone at the table later, and she takes a large swig of the champagne. I know we're meant to believe that Leanne is odd and a little creepy, and at times she totally is. But I have to admit that during the dinner scene, I found her to be quite likable. We see a different side of her, a fish out of water amongst these classy people. I'm very interested to see how her character develops, and how the others react once they learn more about her. I enjoyed this episode, and thought it did a nice job of adding more mysteries that will be exciting to see solved as the season continues. I liked the character development of Julian, and felt more layers were added to both Dorothy and Leanne. While it doesn't quite have the same level of unsettling atmosphere as the first, I thought this was an overall strong episode. I'll give it a B. It's hard to cover everything about this episode, so drop a comment and let us know your thoughts and theories. What did you like or dislike about it? Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next video.